For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber, and today I'm joined by Kelly Walker from Real Freedom Talk magazine. How you doing this morning, Kelly? Happy Monday.
Michael, hanging in there. Good to see you. We might have some thunder in the background here. We're getting a big storm coming through Tennessee.
Doesn't surprise me. It seems like we're getting a lot of weird weather this year, at least up where I'm at in Ohio and other places too. We've got droughts in the southwest and the southeast of the country. Then up here, we're basically drowning. It's cloudy here, so it's probably on the way up where I'm at in Ohio too, but we'll see what happens. But we actually got some good news to start off with today, and that's Tina Peters is set to be freed. And you and I were just talking off air. You know, I don't know what time she's set to be released, and you know, with how petty the left is, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I go back and forth on this. On one hand, I think they're just going to release her like they would any other prison. So it'll be sometime whenever first shift starts in the Colorado prisons, you know, a couple hours from now. I'm going to keep an eye on things, see if maybe she's released while we're still on air, because you know, that'd be getting close to 9 a.m. And I don't have any idea what the shifts are over there at their prison, if it's 7 to 3 or what. But the other possibility is, will they hold her to 11:59, try to keep her in as long as humanly possible, but while remaining compliant with the Jared Polis's decision to release her, which I'm glad he did the right thing, but he certainly took his time to do it.
Yeah, I saw a New York Times article basically calling Tina Peters unrepentant. And the thing about the left is they don't want justice. They don't want rule of law. They want to make people suffer. They want to shame people. So, you know, if it had been one of their own, they would be lauding this clemency as this great mercy and whatever else. And I feel for Tina. I actually spoke on stage at an event with her shortly before she went to prison. She's a very nice lady, you know, and she's obviously, her plight's gotten a lot of attention. Of course, she's one of many Americans who've been similarly persecuted. I believe some of the J6ers were in for longer. I think she's a great symbol of an American standing up to tyranny. And I see some people now coming in, maybe some big influencers and such, who are using this for their own publicity, who didn't really even do a lot, except maybe post once in a while. So I'm hoping Tina can get back to life after this. She's obviously going to be a celebrity. She's obviously going to have news programs trying to reach out to her quite a lot. So I think she needs our prayers for sure, because she's getting out of this just hole of a prison where she was beat up and persecuted and psychologically pressured, and she's going to go back out to who knows what. I don't even know what her house situation is, and suddenly she's going to have cameras in her face. So hopefully they won't be petty and let her out at 11:59 or something like that, but I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, and the house and financial situation are a good thing to bring up, and I probably shouldn't get into that. So, but Yeah, I do know, like, she's basically been financially crippled, like, from this. Not to mention, again, she hasn't exactly had an easy life. I mean, she's a Gold Star mother. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
Um, there's a variety of things that have gone on personally that were also a result of these attacks on her and this, relentless effort to silence her and imprison her. I did a lot of work with her at Lindell TV. She's a friend of mine. She's been on this program a few times. I'm excited that she's going to be out. But yeah, unfortunately, I do see a lot of people probably taking advantage of that and kind of pretending to have been in her camp the whole time. And maybe they covered the story, maybe they didn't. But there's a lot of opportunists out there, unfortunately, too. I just hope she's out, she's okay, and she can get back to her life, whatever that is, if it's going to continue to be public facing or not. Um, I mean, that's really a. I hope she's in good health, and I'm glad she's finally out of the clink.
And the people against her have done some really underhanded things. Like I had heard that
Yes.
her husband's had some health issues, and they tried to interfere there. And I don't
Yep.
know how much detail to go into on that, but these are some very vicious, cruel people. I hope that wherever she lands, I don't know for sure. Well, she probably has to stay in Colorado. I hope some people will surround her and keep her protected, because the way things are going, there are people who would love to harm someone like Tina with her public facing persona.
Yeah. Well, luckily there are a lot of good people in her corner, so I do think she'll have the support she needs. At least when she initially is released. I hope that continues and she isn't just forgotten about, because that's kind of the other side of the coin too. A lot of times, well, somebody's name's in the news, well, it's a big deal. There's people there to support them, but the minute that stops, things fall apart. And that's what's happened with a lot of whistleblowers and other people when they come forward. Like, well, they're in the news, well, their story is getting out there. There's people there to help, but we're easily distracted and we forget about the sacrifices that a lot of people made. And again, it's because she did the right thing. She followed the federal rules, realized the state laws did not supersede it. She made a backup copy of this drive. And if it weren't for that, the so-called trusted build would have destroyed evidence of vote tampering in Colorado. And that's why they're so furious, is because this hard drive is out there. It's known, and it's actually up on Lindell TV still, I believe. So if you guys want to go take a look at the original data yourselves, you can. But again, we've got to support these brave warriors and people that are willing to do the right thing, step forward, even though they know that it isn't just the media, it's the legal system that will be stacked up against them for doing the right thing.
And honestly, I've been writing, and I believe the DOJ has been working hard to have me shadow banned even on X. But I've
Yeah.
been writing a lot about how President Trump is trying to get this weaponization settlement through to help people. It's actually far too little, not to sound ungrateful, but there's just not enough there to cover everybody.
Yeah.
However, I think it's to the shame of the so-called American churches that they haven't stepped forward, that they're not saying, where are these targeted people among us? How can we take care of them? It's the obligation of the church to look after the widows and the fatherless, being a symbol of, oppressed people, people who are downtrodden. And, we had this 250th celebration where all these church leaders got together and said, hey, we're turning back to God, but I just haven't seen the churches helping people. And they need to step out. I hope the local churches there will look in on Tina Peters and say, how can we help? Can we take up some donations? Can we bring meals? These are, General Flynn actually responded to one of my posts on X today, and I was pointing this out, and he said, "Well, the church has always been the ecclesia, not the big organizations and things." And so I hope
Yeah.
we'll continue that discussion. But definitely, a lot of us are in a network where we help one another. But honestly, if these big church leaders are going to step forward and want to appear pious, they need to be pious. They need to be actively obedient to what Christ said to be doing.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I was actually just thinking about this over the weekend because I saw some of this video with James Talrico, and we're going to maybe get to the story later if we have time. But people have kind of the media is basically trying to whitewash things that he'd said in the past and even the recent past, like his campaign going 100% vegan. Now, apparently, that's not the case. Now, Texas runs on barbecue once again. But anyway, I happened to see a video of him speaking at a church a few years ago. And, this is the problem. Like, our side of the aisle just has no fortitude, is not willing to fight back. Whereas the left, everybody saw, Barack Obama's church and pastor up in Chicago and all the political messages there from James Wright, or was it James Wright? Reverend Wright, whatever his first name was. But then, like on our side of the aisle, there's very few that will preach from the pulpit because of this, IRS maybe taking your tax exempt status. I think the law just needs to go away because left-leaning churches, they have no problem politicizing their congregations and pushing their message out, but those on the right are afraid to because of the threat of losing their tax exempt status. So I think it's time to just throw that law out the window. I think, it is the pastor's duty to get involved in some of these things, especially when it's a clear morality issue. Not when we're discussing funding the local roads or whatever, but when it comes to things like abortion or transgenderism or other social issues that do have a moral component to them, we should be taking a stand. There's just so many that are so weak that they use this as an excuse not to have a spine.
Yeah, and I looked it up. I did a little bit of study, and somewhere around 90% of the churches, so-called churches, closed under the lockdowns
Yeah.
when and we had a coffee shop at that time in Tucson, Arizona, and we opened up our doors and told people, well, if they're not going to let you worship, we'll open up at night if we need to. You're free to come in. So we would have some small groups,
Yeah.
but we all know what happened, and a lot of the churches wimped out. And it's not to say that all these churches believed that masking up and all that was the right thing to do. They just, instead of standing up to the lies, which we now know are lies, they chose the safe path. And I don't see that that's how the church Jesus built has operated. They didn't bow to the emperor. They said
Yep.
we ought to obey God rather than men. And yet we in our own area were going to a church, and when they found out some things I've been doing to try to help people, the pastor gave a sermon directed at me, basically saying submit to the governing authorities, completely non-biblical. Unfortunately, so many churches are still trying to protect their little programs and their status, and they're just, people like us who've actually been victims of weaponization aren't getting the support and help, sometimes condemnation.
Yeah. Well, especially if they are willing to take a harsh stand on something, whether that's the border invasion or transgenderism in our schools or whatever, they're afraid of being called mean, nasty names, too. And again, you got to have a spine. You got to stand up for what you believe in. And I've said this before, too. People that complied during the so-called 2 weeks to stop the spread before we really knew what was going on, I don't really have a problem with that. I think a lot of people, again, they were scared. They didn't know what was going on. But I think when it got beyond that, it was obvious what was going on. So I won't knock you if you wore a mask for those 2 weeks, or you closed your business, or you did things like some companies, they didn't let people in. They tried to do everything either remotely, or they'd lock the people in the office and you wouldn't have face-to-face contact with walk-in business or walk-in whatever. I won't knock anybody for that. When it goes beyond that, you've got to use your common sense and judgment. And I've understood, like, this wasn't about protecting people anymore. This is about creating conditions for control. And again, ultimately, I think their real plan with COVID failed. And that was digital IDs. But now we're seeing that roll out through AI and other means, which I'm working on getting a guest on later this week. We're really going to dig into this stuff because that's something else I spent some time on over the weekend. But let's get into our main story. Oh, sorry. Go ahead and respond, and we'll get into our main story.
Our coffee shop policy was to allow people to make their own decisions. We recognize
Yeah.
that these mandates weren't laws and that people have certain civil rights. So no, I don't blame people if they got scared. But like you said, the truth began to come out, and we began to see a lot more collateral damage from the policies than any sort of supposed safety the policies were supposed to create. I mean, kids were committing suicide in record numbers, and now after the fact, everybody's kind of on board with, yeah, that was a mistake, but I wish they would have listened to the
Yeah.
people who knew.
Well, especially
At
when
the
it became
time.
obvious. Like that,
Yeah.
that's what kills me about it. And that's why I say, like, the 2 weeks, I'll give people that, because a lot of people really didn't know what was going on then. We didn't know a lot of those videos coming out of China, people like dropping dead in the street, were fake. You had the reports of Italy of their healthcare system essentially in collapse through a lot of the country, where they were even leaving dead bodies in houses for days at a time. So people didn't know what was real and what to expect and what the total impact was going to be here in the U.S. when things started spreading. So I'll cut people a break there. But I think after that 2 weeks, really during it, that's at least when to me it became obvious what was going on globally. That this wasn't about the disease or anything else. We didn't quite yet know that it was basically a bad cold. But it got pretty obvious this wasn't about protecting people; it was about protecting government, and it was about implementing a lot of these systems that they wanted.
Well,
Um,
here's the thing. At the time, I was a subject matter expert. I was working in the field, editor in chief for a national medical publication, and what I spoke was true from beginning to end. And I think people could feel free to disagree with me, but when my business and my family were attacked because we were speaking the truth and allowing people to make their own decisions, the churches didn't back us up,
yeah,
and they're supposed to. And now you see this with J6ers. Where are the churches helping people? Well, maybe some churches think, oh, they were insurrectionists or whatever. Well, I don't see in the scripture where it says that we're supposed to only visit the prisoners we agree with, or that we're
yeah.
supposed to free the prisoners. Like, there are some people who call themselves Christians who probably hate Tina Peters and want to see her back in prison.
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't put us in that seat of the scornful to say, yeah, we're only going to support the prisoners that we agree with. We know that whether you look at them as guilty or innocent, the J6ers were punished at an unprecedented level. Talk about cruel and unusual punishment. So,
Yeah.
if you're a lefty Christian, where is your compassion? You're putting politics in front of what Jesus said. So, even if playing the devil's advocate, some people broke some windows or something, you're angry about that, getting shut into a gulag and subjected to inhumane conditions, there's no way any Christian can justify that.
No, and that's again like the left is so if they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards whatsoever. I mean, it really is obvious, and the phrase is uh, old and tired, and we've heard it a million times, but there's so much truth in it. And we do see it over and over again when they want people like Luigi Mangione freed, but somebody like Tina Peters basically executed. Um, there's literally Democrat candidates right now. I'm not sure if there's any of them that are in office currently, but I know there's several people running for office that have already stated that, well, Trump's pardon might apply to the J6ers that were already arrested, but there's thousands more we can still go after. So they're
Yeah.
already planning on spinning up that operation again. I know I've seen other stuff about going after the Proud Boys and others again too, since a lot of them, since they were pardoned as well. And then weaponizing. You literally had somebody, thank God she just lost her primary, but you just had a lady that was running, I believe in Texas actually, that was saying that they basically needed re-education camps for the Trump supporters. This should be an effort the federal government should get behind. But guys, riot season is upon us once again. The summer of love is here. And I think this is just the start of it right now. Newark mayor imposes curfew after fiery clashes outside ICE detention center. So this is just kicking off. And actually, let me go ahead and grab a couple other headlines here, too. Insurrection, Antifa riots intensify at ICE's Delaney Hall. DHS Mullins squeezes Dem governor to force police crackdown. So one thing we have seen in New Jersey that we haven't seen in a lot of other fiery but mostly peaceful incidents from the left at these ICE facilities is they did actually send the police out there and make a few arrests when people started getting out of control. Now, of course, the governor and the police, they're fascists too. But again, we've never accepted rioting like this just until the last few years. Then all of a sudden, during the George Floyd BLM riots, the original Summer of Love, then it became acceptable that this was just an expression of their frustration. By the way, you remember the COVID restrictions, those went out the window. It was good to show up and riot. COVID couldn't spread there, but, it could show up if you went to church.
Well, as somebody who has been a target of weaponization, I don't like to use the word victim because I'm not going to let anybody put me in that position. But,
Yeah.
my family was severely persecuted. I was sentenced to jail, $10,000 in fines, illegally taken out of our home sale, you name it. And it was simply because I sat and talked, and I'm large. No act of violence, nothing. The allegations that were put out to the media had nothing to do with my charges. It was all theater. But it is this huge double standard where if you're not a left winger and you didn't write an apology letter to George Floyd, you don't get to even look at somebody sideways and you're guilty and you're a terrorist. Whereas these people throw these tantrums and they get away with it. And I saw this in my kids' school. They're now 20. My oldest two of five are 21 and 24, but they were going to this terrible school in Bend, Oregon called Westside Village. The teachers wore Che Guevara shirts around and things, and this kid was picking on my kid, and they treated the bully like he was the victim, and my kid, like, you shouldn't have your father intervening for you because it's just it's so inverted. It's
Yeah.
absolutely asinine. And when are the leaders that we put into place going to say, we've had enough of this double standard? Because right now, the Senate gave themselves special legal privileges and the ability to sue for just sick, obscene amounts of money if they got their phones tapped under Arctic frost. And yet, some of those same senators are trying to block any kind of aid to people like me who stood
Yep.
up when the standing up was the most risky. So really, this goes back to the leadership being spineless, self-dealing, and they're failing us. They're failing
Yeah.
us terribly.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's at least 20 elected GOP reps in the House and the Senate now that have sided with the Democrats, some more publicly than others. But I'd imagine there's unfortunately probably more than that behind the scenes, but some of them know it would doom their reelection bid, especially in the House. That we already know are these kind of spineless people that have sided with the left over and over again. But to get back to like these ICE riots, it's good to finally see some local effort to curb this violence. As we discussed last week, Antifa has formed another little autonomous zone around the ICE facility there in Newark, and we got to stop this. We talked about it before when there was Chaz Chop and whatever the other little autonomous zone was up in Little Mogadishu. Oh, I can't think of what the name of that one was now. But anyway, there was no real effort to stop it, so they just let them go out there and pretend. They let them go pretend. Now, well, they're their own little sovereign country. They're an autonomous zone. Maybe we treat them that way. Maybe it's time for an invasion, and then we can drag these people out and then prosecute them as unlawful foreign combatants. If they're going to go pretend, if they want to have these deluded fantasies and pretend law doesn't apply to them because of, I don't know, magic beans. They're not really giving us a reason because they said so, I guess. And I also want to again reiterate, ICE is allowing them to inspect vehicles right now as they leave this facility. That's got to stop too. We cannot be working with these people.
No, we can't show weakness for sure.
No.
But it's difficult though. There's a fine line here because we want to our side wants to reestablish rule of law and fairness. So if we went out and treated them the way they treated us, it's kind of what they want because they're experts at playing victim. Communists are work great with hostility and warfare and chaos. However, to your point, if they're letting them inspect vehicles and they're doing things that they're doing, that's just pure weakness, and that's caving
Yeah.
into again, like the principal. This bully came up while I was talking to her with my son, and he used four-letter words against the principal, and I thought, you see what he's like, and she's like, oh well, he's dealing with emotional issues or something, and it's like you can't cave. These are bad
No.
people. There's nothing good about these people.
Yeah, well, I just don't think they get it when it comes to a lot of this. That I mean, honestly, the real thing is they're cheering for it. They know exactly. I think the majority of them know exactly what's going on. They're just not being honest. They know this isn't about some principled stand or anything else. This is about just opposing anything that the right does, that Trump does, and it's about creating turmoil. That what they really want to do is hold the country hostage again. They think what happened in 2020 was effective, and they're not wrong. When they threw these riots all over the place, that was what, people were being taken hostage. It wasn't that their stands were so good. It's they wanted things to return to normal. I mean, I remember watching these videos and I think it was Seattle where they were going around banging pots and pans with megaphones in the middle of the night, keeping everybody up. But it was a way just to terrify everybody. Again, it wasn't about I guess it was about a political position, but this is an area that already agrees with them, that already funds them. And I think you saw the same thing in a lot of cities, that this was about hostage taking. People were like, well, if we go out and we vote for Trump in 2020 or we vote for other conservatives, that this is only going to continue. It's only going to get worse. And it's because of the weakness. It's because we didn't act in 2020. We didn't send in the National Guard to squash the riots after day two. We'll maybe give them a day to let the state sort it out. And then when they don't, move in, boots on the ground and destroy this stuff. And I unfortunately, we've been joking about it for a while, but I do think this is true, that this is the start. We're going to see Summer of Love 2.0 because it's an election year, just like we see them trying to, try to scare everybody indoors with diseases, the hantavirus, now it's Ebola or whatever. It's a repeat of the playbook from 2020 because they're desperate and because
Well,
2024 didn't work out the way they
yeah.
wanted. So now it's time for them to do something again.
I'd like to believe Todd Blanche is on our side. His record speaks otherwise, and frankly,
Yeah.
we haven't had a good attorney general yet under Donald Trump, people are so
Yes.
quick to give him their trust. I mean, yeah, he indicted Comey. He's done things here and there, but where is the indictment of Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, Mayorkas, all these bad actors? And Ed Martin was let go, or Blanche tried to get rid of him after Ed Martin went after Adam Schiff, and
Yeah.
suddenly Blanche was going after Ed Martin instead of Adam Schiff. So I'm very suspect of that. And of course, they trot out this $1.776 billion restitution fund only because Donald Trump was willing to give up his settlement. But first of all, not to be ungrateful, it's not nearly enough money to cover everyone, and now it's being attacked left and right, and including especially by Republican senators and congressmen. So we're not getting the support we need as the people, and frankly, it looks like it's going to be up to us to stand our ground because nobody's helping us. Maybe President Trump is, but he's got so much on his hands. One man can't do it all. And right now Blanche is trying to block me and other targeted parents out of a hearing that we were promised because they want quote unquote squeaky people. They want to sanitize the narrative, but it's the DOJ that is the dirty ones. Those of us who are arrested and persecuted for standing up and speaking for our children, not one single federal indictment, and yet the federal government weaponized against us. So how is it that Todd Blanche gets to take hold of that narrative and decide who gets to speak out or not? It's just more of the same.
Yeah, and I do have a quick update for everybody. It does look like Tina Peters was just released from federal or from state custody at prison there. And I guess she's on the War Room right now with Steve Bannon doing her first interview. So congratulations, Tina. Glad you're out of prison. And I'm glad you're already out speaking about what happened. Again, hopefully we can get you some real justice and real compensation for what happened. And again, we need the DOJ. Once again, we need a real investigation into what happened to you and what happened in the election in 2020 and 2022 and 2024 in the state of Colorado. We know there's extreme levels of corruption there, and it's time to shine a light on it. All right, to jump back to our main topic, but guys, we have publicly funded teachers unions network join anti-ICE protests as the left mobilized against Trump's immigration enforcement agenda. So, I mean, again, we saw the same thing happening with school districts in Illinois and other places where, again, they're using public money to bus people around to anti-ICE protests. Same thing in Minnesota. Same thing in Florida. Believe it or not, the teachers union and the state. What is the word I'm looking for? One of their state organizations for teachers. The same thing. They got behind this for the May Day protests. But yeah, again, this is your public sector money. If you're a teacher in the system, they're using your dues that you're paying in to for political purposes. I'm sure they gave a lot of them days off and other stuff and funded them to be out there. But again, it's disgusting that the public sector unions are joining in and arguing for crime. Because make no mistake, that's what it is. You're arguing that we should have a border invasion, that your money is not your money, it's the illegal aliens' money, and why are we standing in the way of that? I mean, it's disgusting.
Yeah, it really is, and that's the problem. They're very organized. They're funded. Frankly, the left wants it more than a lot of us do, and people
Yep.
here are lulled by theories that someone's going to come save us, that there's a master plan, all of that, and they're lulled into inaction. And frankly, we're almost halfway into this presidency and close to the midterms, and time's ticking out. But I'll tell you,
Yeah.
this, Michael. I sat this winter in Nashville for about 3 hours with James O'Keefe, and we discussed this and shared notes. And the deep state's agenda, their plan is to play out the clock on Donald Trump. So they'll put a few
Yeah.
wins on the board. They'll sacrifice a few things or people to try to get this country back. So would James Comey be a part of saying, yeah, go ahead and indict me, even convict me? I'll take one for the team. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but
Yeah.
it sure appears that way. And when James O'Keefe does his sting on an FBI agent, he says, yeah, that's our agenda, is to play out the clock. They say it blatantly, and then I have information on it too. We got to
Yeah.
look at this and say, this war is far from over, and just getting Donald Trump into office and election isn't going to fix this.
No, we need somebody at the DOJ that really will clean up all the scum in there and then really will actually prosecute people from the deep state to the Epstein class to people within government that have used their power against the American people, that have weaponized whole sectors of our government, including, again, the DOJ and our intelligence services and federal law enforcement. All of these have been weaponized. Clearly, people do need to pay a price for it. There's a lot more people that need to get fired and a lot more that need to be imprisoned. And yes, they will pretend to do things. Well, I shouldn't say pretend. They will do things. They will make, as you said, sacrifices, or they will go after the worst of the worst. I mean, I think even some of the leftists at the top don't exactly like when there are little armadas out in the street or, burning down police stations, because they know it's not a good look, that it isn't going to advance their agenda. It's going to be counterproductive. So yes, they will probably hit some people here and there. But, like to bring up Blanche again, they're taking credit for a lot of things they didn't start. Like even this SPLC investigation, that goes back 3 years. That's prior to when Trump took office again. Same with some of the other prosecutions with this one lady in Minnesota. That started prior to Trump taking office, that she got caught beforehand. It was one of the few getting prosecuted. Now, again, I'm glad that they can get some of the Somali pirates on the ground up in Minnesota. That we just saw this other prosecution for a lady that stole $22 million. Sorry, it might have been $21 million. But again, I want the people at the top. I want the political appointees and elected officials that, if not orchestrated this, allowed it to happen. And we already know that there's laws that can be prosecuted under for dereliction of duty and other things, even if they weren't actively involved in making it happen. But there have to be consequences for the people in power that facilitated this fraud on America. I mean, we're going to get to California again here, hopefully, in just a little bit, because there's more breaking news there. But I mean, this is disgusting, and this is why all of government basically needs an enema. We've got to get rid of all the poison up there, all the political partisans that are there to use their power to destroy America, and we've got to fire them. And honestly, we've got to put in our own partisans, ones that will watch for this going forward, that will sound the alarms if there's another Democrat administration, that will alert the country to what's going on that shouldn't be in the DOJ or any other entity at the federal level. We need real fighters that will expose this, and then we need real prosecution so there's consequences and it can't happen again.
Well, I went up to the DOJ and met with Todd Blanche's senior counsel on January 23rd, started recording it because I was so troubled by what I was hearing and felt like we need this for the protection of parents like me. Literally, they're still labeling parents as terrorists. They think we're terrorists
Yep.
because we go out to the media and say nothing's been done. And frankly, the message back from some of that crew, and I've gotten these messages back personally, is the people in DOJ, and I'm talking Trump's administration,
Yep.
they don't like being called out, and they don't have to do anything. So it's this just hubris and disregard for anybody who dares to complain. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. And
Yep.
they told me in that hearing also, or that meeting also, that a planned hearing to where the parents could tell their testimonies, that some of us wouldn't be involved because we're not quote unquote squeaky clean. After I
Yeah.
release those recordings, they're claiming that I can't be a part of the hearing because I released the recordings, but that's an absolute lie, because they had already told me before. They want to control the narrative, and they want to trot out people, maybe school moms who got offended or something, but they don't want the world seeing that the DOJ actually put parents in jail and took their lives. They want to sanitize that, and this is our side doing this. So
Yep.
they've tried very hard. I'm being shadow banned. They've tried anybody who stands up to them and says, "We want the truth. We want you to come clean. We want you to make this right." Under Todd Blanche, it ain't happening. It
Pretty
just ain't.
much. No. And if it were going to happen, there would be signs of it by now. I get some people can have political conversions, but I have trouble believing Blanche was a lifelong Democrat until 2024. And now suddenly he is a mega America First Republican. I know he did change his political affiliation, but I'm not seeing it in the actions. If this guy were out there in front of the media every day being aggressive on this stuff, calling it out, we were seeing numerous indictments being filed all over the country and things suddenly happening, then I would say, yeah, it was just Bondi that was the problem. But everybody knows Bondi was basically a figurehead. Blanche, everybody said it before, was basically running things behind the scenes. He's the one that ended the weaponization committee, tried to push Ed Martin out. This guy was the one people were pointing to behind the scenes until Bondi got thrown out, and then suddenly now we're supposed to believe he's a
Yeah.
great guy. I
Well,
don't buy
everybody
it.
knows. everybody knows that I'm one of the most egregiously abused parents who stood up, and that I've been the tip of the spear for years. And it's not about me; it's about helping all of these people. But Todd Blanche has refused to talk to me. In fact, he's done an end run around me, trying to reschedule this hearing as long as I'm not included, as long as some other parents who were egregiously treated, not only by the previous administration but by this one, as long as we're not included. So that's not good faith. And I've tried to be positive and say, hey, thank you for putting this fund into place, but they're trying to block people out. They're trying to sanitize the narrative, and that's the
Yeah.
whole reason why DOJ got into trouble in the first place. Is they try to restrict free speech, protected speech, and they're doing it again.
Yeah.
And my voice might be little, but I'm going to keep calling it out, because Todd Blanche, I I don't think
Yeah.
he should stay in that position, because what he's doing behind the scenes is more like under Biden than what we would expect under Trump.
Yeah, we need a killer in that position. We need somebody that's really willing to go out and take a wrecking ball to all the infrastructure that the left has
Todd
put in
Blanche is
place to
protecting
oppress.
the
Yeah,
he's protecting
exactly.
the infrastructure, and they'll let a
E-
few
ex-
low lying people,
yeah.
low ranking people
Well,
go.
again, yeah,
They
that's
tried to get rid of Ed Martin, who was the only one who was helping the parents. We
correct.
all know this.
Yeah.
It's a matter of record.
Yes. Well, that's why we need somebody in there that is a real fighter. Somebody that will go after these people. It doesn't care about how much the media cries about weaponization or retaliation or anything else. That will just go do the right thing, ignore them, prosecute people, and put the hammer down. Because otherwise, again, they're trying. The sort of the thing that's being floated now behind the scenes as well. We can't pursue this stuff till after the midterms, but then, boy, the gloves are coming off. And I just don't believe it. This is always the way it is. It's always shifting the goalposts. It's moving things down. Oh, we can't do that now, or there'll be this will happen. But this is the whole problem. Like, we wouldn't be concerned about the midterms and voter turnout and other problems that we're seeing on the near horizon if things were just being done. The base would be energized if there was a slate of people who had already been arrested and prosecutions were ongoing, if we were seeing a real effort for justice for parents, for J6ers, for other people that the DOJ abused, um, then you wouldn't have to redistrict. I mean, again, that's something we should be doing, but our hopes wouldn't be pinned on that right now. There would not be this enthusiasm gap if they were just doing their job and people were getting arrested that didn't look like the Epstein class was once again being protected by the people that we put in office to prosecute them. These problems are mostly self-induced. Yeah, I get it. The media and the left are mad and they're out there and they're making their pitch. But again, if we were getting mass deportations, people would be charged about that instead of getting this, the DHS appearing to ease off things yet again. So it's got to happen. Maybe we'll still pull off the midterms. I mean, I really think it's a coin flip right now. That there is some good potential with some of the redistricting that's gone on, but same thing there. Why is it we have rhinos sabotaging this in South Carolina and other places when, again, we've got to actually utilize the power the people give us, and that's one of their great frustrations is we back down and work with the Democrats every time this happens instead of just doing the right thing and doing what they ran on.
Yeah, absolutely. There are three words that I think might haunt us if we don't wake up really quickly.
Yeah.
Justice is coming. And if your goal, and you're in the administration and you secretly are working against Trump, and look, all the ex um, all the ex Biden and Obama people have said that those people are still in the administration. Justice is coming is going to be a way to play out the clock and keep you thinking something's going to happen. And we're
Yep.
almost midway through the presidency and we're still being told that. What has happened? Well, don't worry about it. Justice is coming. And then what happens if people say, well, we haven't had anything happen? They're called black pillars. They're called negative. They're cut off politically. This isn't okay. We get to complain. We get to say, hey, we haven't been helped yet. Nobody's been held accountable. I want
Yeah.
to have every single parent and J6 or and anybody other targeted through Merrick Garland. I want them to be able to face him directly. I want to ask Merrick Garland when he's going to be held responsible for the hardship he's put my family through.
Yeah. Yep. It's time for actual accountability. People are sick and tired of this. All right, to get us back over here to New Jersey once again, MS Now anchor gets kicked out of violent Newark anti-ICE protest by police, then complains about it live on TV. Well, he wasn't the only one that was kicked out, but they were kicked out by the cops, as opposed to Hassan Piker, who was basically run out of the protest by the anti-ICE protests. Uh, but yeah, again, when you're down there, basically rioting right alongside people, I know you're standing there holding a microphone. When you're part of the problem, again, I'm glad the police threw them out because they were clearly trying to drum things up and honestly, I think push people towards more violence. But again, there need to be consequences, and make no mistake, Miss Now is not there to educate their audience or inform them or even articulate their particular political opinion. They are there to be a mouthpiece for the left. They are there to propagandize people. And again, I'm glad they were thrown out. But again, I just think this is another symptom of the problem, basically.
Yeah. The media is terrible. And I think the media, the deep state, and others, they're just trying to survive. They're trying to weather Trump's administration. And, they're just being enabled to pull through and to survive. But it's sort of like, Hydra from the Avengers. If you take one head out, two others are going to pop up in its place. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the answer is, but just because our enemy is weak and against the ropes doesn't mean they're not still dangerous, very dangerous.
Nope, time for that knockout punch. But yeah, New Jersey wasn't the only place having riots over the weekend. We also saw this in France. They tried to burn down Paris once again. France, 7 in 10 believe crime is out of control. Country faces mechanization. Hundreds arrested as riots and looting. Sorry, this thing keeps popping on my screen. As riots and looting break out after Paris Saint Germain victory in Champion League final. So this is all after a soccer match over the weekend. These were the media in Europe is hilarious. They were portraying these as people without tickets, not pointing out the obvious that the people rioting in the street were all the Islamic migrants, Islamic invaders that have taken over the city. And this is over 24 hours. Numerous businesses and buildings destroyed, hundreds, if not thousands of cars. They haven't even done the same. They were burning all these little e-bikes and e-scooters that are available for rental, throwing fireworks at the police, numerous assaults, I don't know if it's hundreds arrested, but a large number arrested. And once again, they're just trying to, these were just people out there celebrating. Well, no, that's not what it is. This is, people getting out of control celebrating. Like I saw somebody contrasting this with some team in Boston. I don't remember if it was the Celtics or who it was after winning a championship a few years ago, where some people got a little unruly in the street. They were out there drinking. There were some arrests. Some people climbed some traffic lights, but they weren't setting random vehicles on fire or burning down buildings or assaulting people in the street. Or, there's a horrible video from this where some lady being drug out of her car and attacked by what are very clearly North African and Islamic migrants that have gone to the streets to riot. It's always the shoe stores and things like that get looted and stuff like this. This isn't about celebrating that your soccer team won. This is about them seizing control of the streets of Paris and showing the people who's really in charge. And just so they're afraid to vote for National Rally, Marine Le Pen, her candidate, since they've thrown her off the ballot.
Well, it's like you say. I hate to tell you this, but I told you so. We've
Yeah.
we've been preaching this for a long time. We understand history. We understand that the goal of Islam has always been to take over the West by
Yeah.
conquest, if necessary, by infiltration, absolutely. And some of these people in Europe, and particularly in France, have looked down their noses at us and said, "Oh, well, you're racist. You have no
Yeah.
love in your heart." But we were right because we understand human nature. The left thinks that everybody's basically good, but they're just victims of their society. So if
Yeah.
if they're poor, it's because of white privilege. If they're oppressed, it's because the white man wants to control everything. No, they're in this situation because their societies, their nations are led by evil ideologies that lead people to strap bombs on themselves, send their kids off to blow themselves up for Allah.
Yeah.
There are plenty of wealthy people of all colors and backgrounds that have taken advantage of the principles this country was founded on: the free enterprise, a system of law predicated on the Ten Commandments, and you know, these these people are getting the fruits of their own self-deception, and it's sad to see, but we did say that this was going to happen.
Yeah, and keep in mind, guys, we just had another Islamic rape gang basically get away with it in Belgium over the weekend. And you had another mass stabbing, and I don't remember if that was in Sweden or what country it was. And of course, again, was the religion of peace, being the religion of peace, going out there and doing what they always do, and that's terrorize. Because again, this is about control. But again, the media loves the narrative. You know, they don't. And really, a lot of this it is about destroying European culture. They can't have that anymore. It needs to be replaced by this globalist agenda because it's easier to control a divided people. So you infiltrate a country with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people that do not share your culture, your values, your religion, or anything else that made your country, and it's to dilute people. It's to pit them against each other and make them live in fear because again, you're easier to control. All right, let's try to sneak in a few other stories here because we're almost out of time. Trump derangement syndrome infiltrates America's 250th birthday concert. So this is kind of a combination. It's a good story. It's up there on the Blaze, but this is actually about a couple different things that's going on because apparently you've got a lefty version of this concert that was supposed to happen with the usual suspects. Bruce Springsteen, Rage Against the Machine. I don't remember who else. They're out there to protest about how horrible America is and how Trump's just orange Cheeto Hitler. As a counter concert, and I can't remember what college is supposed to or was supposed to take place at. And then you have the musicians and artists who are going to play this. Some of them just nonpartisan, some of them Democrats that didn't care, that wanted to celebrate America, some of them actual conservatives, but they're all being harassed by the left right now. And over the weekend, I guess beginning on Friday, you had several pull out. Because it's not just them being threatened, it's their crew, it's their staff, it's family members that are getting death threats and everything else. But again, where's law enforcement? Shouldn't we be taking these people down if they're threatening to kill the artist just for showing up to play a celebration concert for America's 250th anniversary? They're being told, well, you're supporting Trump, so now it's fair game to go after you, your kids, or whoever else. And these people are wackos. So who's to say some of them won't actually do it?
Well, in the very first issue of Freedom Talk magazine, October of 2021, I posted an article I had written earlier, and the title of that article was How to Murder Millions. And it showed how we get to these places where nations are uh, killing their own people, where one side rises up against the other, a political party gets into place. I looked at the Warsaw Ghetto, the gulags of the Soviet Union, and others, and I found certain patterns, and I identified way back then where this was heading if we don't stop it. And
Yeah.
part of what you can read that article at realfreedomtalk.com. Just go there and search for How to Murder Millions. And one of the things that allowed this to happen was people had this delusion that somebody was going to come along and save them. There was some big plan. And, justice is coming. How long can we hear that? I don't know. And there is this plan that people believe in that right at the last moment we're going to be snatched out of this. Well, maybe not. I wouldn't put my faith in that, though. I wouldn't let it keep you from speaking out and acting and pressing your lawmakers and those in charge to deal with this and deal with it now, because the idea that somehow there's this great plan and they're going to come sweeping in and the military is going to make a bunch of arrests and they're all going to be at Gitmo, I don't think you can rely on that. What if you're wrong?
Yeah. Well, again, doing the right thing is never easy, and too many people just make excuses. Um, Let me go ahead and pull. I'm going to start trying to get the last couple things in here before we run out of time. Guys, again, if you live out in California, I don't know why you're still there, but California Assembly passes the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Radical Democrats move to criminalize investigative journalism and shield massive immigrant services fraud. Well, it's not just that. It's any of these stories where you're basically looking at fraud and exposing what's going on in blue states, whether it's the homeless industrial complex or visa fraud, all the Medicare, Medicaid, state fraud, the COVID fraud, the autism fraud or whatever. If you're looking into this stuff and you're exposing an operation, if they think it unfairly impacts minorities, which is also, whatever they say it is, that's illegal aliens in this case. Um, but yeah, now they're going to have this. Now, this is not law yet, but it's passed the state assembly, the House in California. It moves on to the Senate, and then I'm sure Gavin Newsom will sign this into law and make this, make a big deal about it. This is about fighting back against right-wing propaganda, blah blah blah, whatever it is he says. When in reality, we know there's states, they're already up to $250 billion in fraud just in California. It's been uncovered so far. Um, so my guess is it's probably going to be twice that once things really heat up there. You know, um, but again, this is about targeting people that are doing the right thing and exposing the corruption on the left. And if there's any Republicans in there, expose them too. I mean, I think they should all be tarred and feathered. We need to make politicians birds again, make them live in fear of the people. Um, Something has to actually happen and change. Like this level of fraud cannot be perpetrated on us. When you look at the spending and how much of it's going overseas or going right into the pockets of leftists and elected officials all over the country, it's got to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's the left all over again, trying to hide their crimes and trying to penalize the people who are shedding light on them. When the lights go on, the cockroaches scatter. So what they're going to do is say, "Well, just don't turn on the lights,"
Yeah.
and it's despicable. I don't know what to do about it, but I don't know. I don't understand how anybody can keep living in Colorado. I hear that Oregon, some people are trying to get it to where it'll be illegal to hunt and fish there. And
Yeah,
what
or
do you?
even farm.
Yeah, but do you retreat? Do you stand up to it? What do you do? Because how much do how much of our U.S. territory do they get to take over before they're stopped? And are they the true Americans who believe in the principles of liberty going to be pushed further and further into corners of the country? That's the question.
Well, I think that's obviously the idea is they want to pit us against each other. I think the purpose of some of these rulings or some of these laws is both to prop up their base and make them feel like they're winning something. Ha ha ha! Look at this. We're going to get revenge on Nick Shirley and all Nick Sorter and all the other reporters that have gone to California to expose our actions, or Little Mogadishu or Oregon or wherever else. That you're going to see other blue states emulate these kind of laws, even if they know they're not going to hold up in court. That this is obviously persecution. And again, like finding journalists for exposing fraud, I don't know what their possible legal justification could be for that, but it isn't going to hold up in the long term. But it's a way to, again, weaponize the court where the process is the punishment. These people are going to spend hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars fighting it once it goes through, but the left doesn't care about that. What they care about is power, and this is another avenue to that for them, and to help block exposure from some of the illicit activity that they benefit from that's gone on within their states for years that everybody's known. But I mean, one other story I want to connect to this, because wouldn't you know it, here we go again. Burned mail-in ballots found in Los Angeles drop boxes days before mayoral election. How much you want to bet this was in areas where Spencer Pratt was polling well and taking in more votes than Karen Bass, since Nikki Raman was basically assassinated at the debate. She dropped 40 points after looking like a fool at that debate they had a few weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, it's where do we even go with this, Michael? How
Yeah,
do we save this country? There, and somebody was asking me, one of these targeted parents was saying, "Well, we just need to get to more media, and we just need to get this in front of big people." And I said, "We've been in front of all the media. Some of the even the conservative media aren't going to cover these things because they're being paid by the system, but also
no,
there's just so much going on. How do you even sort through it? It used to be like you watch Dateline or something and they expose some big scandal and, oh wow, we're going to get on this and it gets remedied. But there are so many scandals now. There are so many just things going on that just are unbelievable that these things have lost all their shock value. There's no controversy anymore. There's just a blip in the news cycle.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. There is so much, and I've thought about this before, like how many things have gotten past us just because it is an all-out assault. This has kind of been the direction the left's gone really since Barack Obama, where part of the idea is they have so many irons in the fire, so many different attacks that they're pursuing that people on the right forget about some of them. Some of the stuff slips through the cracks and they end up getting away with it. But this can't really stand. Again, this is why we need the DOJ and other people actually active, doing their job, making arrests and fighting back. Because, again, you can bet your bottom dollar if something isn't done to stop the bad behavior, it will continue, even if they dial it back for a little while where they're out of power. So yes, we do have to actually fix these issues. And again, California, how is it that we have this many election irregularities and they always seem to benefit the right? Like another thing I've heard about is the ballot is out for the governor's race. And of course, what's his name? Tom Steyer is at the very top. He's number one. The 40 some odd, I think it was just under 50 people running for governor. But of course, Steve Hilton, he's in the very last column, in the middle, towards the bottom, not up top as the top running candidate. They don't do an alphabetical order either. It's just a random jumble. I don't know if they pull it out of like a ping pong lottery type machine, decide that way, or if it's random or whatever. But of course, the lineup appears to benefit Democrats with him at the top, and then what's her name, Katie Porter, also visible. I think it's at the top of the next column. We had during the gubernatorial recall, they had the window on the envelope. You could see if they voted to recall Gavin Newsom or not a few years ago. And then a lot of those might have just gone missing once the post office got a hold of the mail-in ballots. Shucks, they just lost your vote. Something happened to it. But that's, it has nothing to do with you voting for the recall, because they knew that you voted for somebody else then. But when you keep having these kind of things, or again, drop boxes suddenly getting caught on fire in the state just before the election, something's going on. Maybe the other thought that I saw floated about this is maybe this is so they can declare the election invalid because of missing mail-in votes if Bass loses. Because again, make no mistake, even though Spencer Pratt is rising in the polls right now, it's close. He's within the margin of error in most polls, or only up just beyond that. And again, the margin of victory has to be greater than the margin of fraud for a conservative or a Republican or whoever else to win. Anybody that's an outside of the machine, especially in a deep blue state like California. They're not even deep blue. They're freaking communists.
Yeah, I guess it remains to be seen, but you're right. They maintain plausible deniability that, it was a technical glitch. Funny how it always comes out in their favor. So and it's very sneaky. And a lot of people think, by the way, and I talked to Mike Lindell about this around the time of the election, that I don't think it was their plan to try to steal another presidential election. I think they went for down ballot races, and then I think they have this plan because they realize if they tried to pull this again, they would show their hand too much. So their plan has been to wait it out with Donald Trump, infiltrate all they can, make him look bad during his presidency, and alienate his voters and come back and cheat again. So winning the 2024 election didn't really solve a lot of problems, that the deep problems that have really hijacked this country. And I think we need to be aware of that.
Yeah, if anything, I think it just kind of highlighted them to us and forced the manifestation of some of them. But if you're not going to do anything to prevent this stuff, or very little, or only through executive order, I mean, that's the problem with, it's not just Trump's DOJ that's the problem. One of the biggest problems we have is the House Republicans and Senate Republicans that are standing in the way of things like the SAVE Act, or codifying any of these executive orders that could fix some of these problems. Now, thank God we got a victory from the courts in the mail-in ballot executive order from Trump, not forcing them to verify identification and signatures for all mail-in ballots, and restricting what they could be sent out for. Thank God we had a judge that stepped in there and is prevented the Democrats from shutting that down. And this is a case where I think they'll probably file a similar lawsuit in a different court, because now if it moves up to the Supreme Court, they're going to default back to this earlier court decision, and I don't think that they can pull off blocking this. But they will try again. They will go other paths, and then what's probably going to happen is they'll judge shop. They'll find somewhere where they can block it, And then when Trump wins again on appeal or it goes up to the Supreme Court, they're going to say, gosh, guys, well, I guess it's just too close to the election now. We're going to have to allow them to do this. Because, again, for them, there is no truth but power. Even if this is obviously wrong, obviously a manipulation of the law, and obviously there to allow for more cheating, to make it harder to determine who's actually voting in our elections, none of that matters to them because it's about power.
Yeah, and I'm no political insider. I mean, I've worked very hard for years, and I have some skills that allow me to get into some of those circles and really figure some things out. I am highly educated, which hasn't hurt. But
Yeah.
I actually went to Washington D.C. for the first time in 2023, and I've been there several times since. So kind of really as an outsider and just another citizen who's really devoted himself to trying to help clear things up. What I've seen is that DC is one big rolling party. That all the people, they're in the same communities in Virginia, Maryland, surrounding areas. Their kids go to the same schools, and while there is rancor and competition among them, frankly, a lot of these senators that you're seeing now rebelling against Trump and MAGA, they're treating him like he's a lame duck president.
Yep.
They don't like anybody who's a threat to that ecosystem. They don't. You're an outsider.
Yep.
Get out. This is our little kingdom. This is when they say our democracy, what they mean is their little kingdom installed in our country, and the rest of us are a bunch of peasants and heathens. I hate to say it, but Washington D.C. physically is a beautiful place, but it's worse than a swamp. It's worse than a sewer. It's very very bad, and
Yeah.
we keep going back to them and asking them for our rights with our hat in our hands, and they honestly, with a few notable exceptions, they don't care about us. They just want to keep us placated enough to keep
Yes.
making their money, their insider deals to live that life that none of the rest of us get to live. It's really disgusting. I have to say that's my objective
Yeah.
assessment of what I've seen.
Well, they care more about the cocktail parties and the New York Times writing nice stories about them than actually being there to represent their constituency or do what's best for America. They want to go back to business as usual, insider deals, insider trading, making buku bucks for themselves and their families, while ignoring all of us peasant serfs out there. The tax base, they think we're basically a life support system for their infrastructure in government. That the only purpose we serve as residents in the United States or illegal aliens here too is to pay them taxes so they can do more things that they want and line their own pockets. They are a parasite on our existence, and something needs to change. I got one last story I want to sneak in here because, guys, Democrats are out there doing the hard work and the heavy lifting, and they're bringing up the issues that America really cares about, like Dem House reps demand mandatory extra 6 days for women on their periods. Well, so much for equality, I guess, but they never meant equality anyway. They always mean special treatment. But again, just hilarious that this is where they're focused. We've all these serious issues going down, things just burning down all over the world. We got Iran now backing out of these peace agreements once again, saying they're not going to negotiate with the U.S. We got riots in New Jersey, riots in Paris, AI data centers strangling small towns all over the country. But your real concern is making sure you get extra sick days if you're a woman. Now, can a trans man, does this also apply to them if they think they're on their period, Kelly?
Oh God only knows. And just as disgusting as that is, all of us Americans who were targeted out there, weaponized against, we have cried out to our leaders for so long. They've turned their backs on us again and again. The few who've tried to help us are just drowned out. And then suddenly, when they find out their phones were tapped, when they found out about Arctic frost, now it's an emergency. Now they're going to hold meetings. Now they're going to get laws passed. It's disgusting. Honestly, one of the best things that could ever happen is that power gets decentralized and this government gets cut way, way down. And as it was intended in the Constitution in the first place, the federal government is basically here to protect our rights, to maintain the military and
Yep.
watch out for abuses. But other than that, we've been all but enslaved, and our government is way, way, way out of control.
Yeah.
If you read Freedom Talk magazine, we have a writer called that goes by the pen name Madam Publius, and he's pointing this out an awful lot. We have some real constitutional writers there that I think it'd be worth your while to go to realfreedomtalk.com and
Yeah.
subscribe for free or do the paid subscription for $50 a year.
It's a good price for a lot of information. $50 a year goes a long way too to support a lot of the work you and the other columnists and guests at Freedom Talk Magazine do to support America and turn us in the right direction. Again, we've said this before a million times. The government is going to have to relinquish some of the power that they've stolen over the years. We need to get back to living under the Constitution, and most of these problems would go away. Right now, the American people are paying as much as 35% just of their base income, 37 and 38.5% of their income to the federal government in taxes. They're taking over a third of your income. We got to get back to something that's under control. Again, I have no problem with a reasonable small amount of taxes to support our military and the other few functions that the federal government's supposed to serve. That's fine. And, maybe that number can't realistically be 2-3%. Maybe it's a 10% flat tax across the country. I think people would accept that if that's what it was to support the military and support the other key functions the federal government's supposed to do. But otherwise, a lot of this stuff, it's time to just shut it down. It only leads to problems. Kelly, thanks again for joining me today. To our audience, thank you for being here with us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more. Thanks again, guys.